Oh, it is the current greatest wide receiver alive walking the field in Minnesota, Cooper Kupp, who's just on a record-shattering pace so far this season. He and the Rams with a big win today. And Joe Burrow, who our own Kimmy Checks calls the swaggiest man in the National Football League. And I think all his fingers point in the right direction now, so that's a plus.
He can't be the worst quarterback in his own state today.
He's certainly not going to be the worst quarterback in his own state today. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that as well. Big one, though, for the Bengals against the Baltimore Ravens. Welcome to NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. I'm Marcus Grant. I know who I am. I'm Marcus Grant. He's Michael F. Florio. We drew the short straw, and we are here on the day after Christmas. Hopefully, it was a good holiday for all of you. Hopefully, it's a good holiday for you as well.
I had a good time. I'm still recovering a little bit.
Yeah.
So ate way too much food, but it's a good Christmas.
No, it means it's a pretty good Christmas. Hopefully, for the rest of you, it was a good day. Hopefully, your week started well as well. I know there have been a lot of obstacles to getting a lineup set this week, so we're going to try and help you out with that. Please send us your questions on Twitter at NFL Fantasy. And so let's just get right into it because it's been a wild weekend. We got some injury news for you. We know that Lamar Jackson is out with an ankle injury. DeAndre Swift has been ruled inactive with a shoulder. Damian Harris is active, which is big news because Ramondre Stevenson not expected to play in this one. DJ Moore is active with a hamstring. Adam Thielen is active after missing a few games with that ankle injury. Kadarius Toney is back after a couple of different ailments. In the later games, Teddy Bridgewater is out with a concussion. Antonio Gibson, a game-time decision as he deals with a toe injury. Darren Waller is doubtful as he continues to nurse a knee and back injury. And Pat Freiermuth is out with a concussion. And now, because this is where we are in the world and in the NFL, we have a COVID board. These are players who are on the reserve COVID-19 list. Jared Goff, Tyler Huntley, who was going to be the starter for the Ravens today. Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian are out, which means Ian Book likely starting for the Saints on Monday night. Austin Eckler is out against the Texans. Dalvin Cook out, missing the game against the Rams. Cole Beasley is out for the Bills. And then the big one, Travis Kelce, not available. So, because, as we just saw there's no Travis Kelce this week. A lot of folks going to be hurting at the tight end spot. So who are some guys that you might put in stream for him?
I think there's a good amount of tight ends you could grab off the waiver wire right now. Evan Ingram, he gets a good matchup. There's Gerald Everett, who's been used more in the red zone. Jared Cook, just because the Chargers are a little thin there. And Jordan on the Houston Texans, I think he's a little bit of a deeper sleeper as well. Yeah,
I think Brevin Jordan's a really good opportunity right now. I also do sort of like C.J. Uzomah. He might not be as easy to find on your waiver wire, but the Ravens have struggled against tight ends all year long. Plus, if you check social media, C.J. Uzomah showed up dressed like Buddy the Elf. So that has to be worth something. It's got to be worth something right there. All right, in Tampa, Mike Evans is out with a hamstring injury. We already know that Chris Godwin is on injured reserve for the rest of the year with a knee injury. So what does this mean for Antonio Brown?
I think Antonio Brown is a must-start wide receiver one this week. There's no Chris Godwin, no Mike Evans. And when Antonio Brown was playing this year, in the 5 full games he played, he was averaging over 19 fantasy points per game, over a 20% target share. I think it's going to be a lot of Antonio Brown, a lot of Rob Gronkowski, and then the secondary wide receivers will be sprinkled in. But this guy's in my top 10 rankings, wide receiver rankings this week.
And he thinks that Tom Brady had a lot to do with it. I'm sure Bruce Arians obviously has say in it, but I would think after last week, watching Tom Brady try and lead a comeback with Tyler Johnson and Jalen Darden, not fun. So
no.
I'm sure he was very excited to get Antonio Brown back into the lineup this week. All right. It's time for the Waiver Wire presented by KFC. Have the top waiver wire targets for the week. At running back, you got Justin Jackson, who he says is going to be playing for the Chargers in place of Austin Eckler. Alexander Madison, because Dalvin Cook is out. Rashad Penny still getting some love in Seattle. Craig Reynolds back in our lives because no DeAndre Swift this week against the Falcons. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I kind of like. Would like a little bit better if Jared Goff was there, but we'll make do. Devontae Parker should get some run for the Dolphins against the New Orleans Saints. So, Florio, we can either go from that list, we can go off menu. Who is your waiver wire hero?
I'm going to go off menu a little bit, and we were talking about tight ends, so I'm going to go with Gerald Everett here. And I said Everett was a player who's been getting more usage in the red zone. It feels like that's where all of his targets as of late have come. He's had one like that one where he gets tackled on the one. I know some weeks he gets the touchdown, some weeks he doesn't, but if you're getting a little bit deeper at tight end, the Bears aren't great against the position either. I think he could be be a potential Travis Kelce replacement that you grab off the waiver wire, or maybe you were smart when you saw Kelce land on the COVID list earlier this week. You stashed him on your bench just in case.
Yeah, I do like Gerald Everett. We know how much they love their tight ends down near the end zone, too, so I think that gives Everett maybe a little bit of push. You just want a touchdown. That's really all you want when you're streaming tight ends. For me, I'm going hashtag Rex in the flex. I'm going to go Rex Burkhead, and I may regret this later. Who knows? It wouldn't be the first time. But look, the Texans offense, it's not good. It's also shorthanded. There's a reason that our pal Adam Rank was on the Nico Collins train earlier this week because they're going to need some help. And this is where Rex can step in. The Chargers have struggled against the run, but even if LA gets out to a lead and forces Houston into a passing situation, the Chargers have given up some receiving yards to the running back position. We know Rex Burkhead can catch the football. Admittedly, the floor is low. The ceiling's not super high, but if you were in a pinch and you were here on Sunday morning and you're trying to pick somebody up to put in your flex spot, beggars can't really be choosers. And so a little bit of hashtag Rex in the flex for you there. All right. It is time now for 15 for 15, presented by Geico. We've got the top 5 must-start quarterbacks for the week. Matthew Stafford is for sure a go against the Minnesota Vikings. Russell Wilson, I know he had a bad week last week against the Rams. I think he bounces back against the Chicago Bears. Joe Burrow, who we saw earlier, I think he is poised for big things against the Ravens. But let's look at Dak Prescott. And I know there have been a lot of questions this week about Dak Prescott. By the way, I should mention Jalen Hurts was on that list. But a lot of questions about Dak because he has been struggling. There's no doubt about it. Fewer than 12 points in 3 of his last 4 games. But he's got a great matchup against Washington. This feels a little bit like a get-right opportunity. So I understand there are a lot of people with questions about whether it's Dak or someone else. I know I have rosters with Dak and Jalen Hurts. In that case, I'm probably going Hurts. But depending on your situation, I think Dak is an okay start this week against Washington. In a game that the Cowboys, I think, really need to win. A win gets them, I think, maybe wins the NFC East for them, but for sure gets them a little bit closer to that division title. So there we go. Those are the must-start quarterbacks. Let's flip to the running backs here. And Florio, take us through your list.
James Robinson, because Urban Meyer's not there anymore. He's getting the ball again. He's in a great matchup. Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the Chiefs a little thin, and against the Steelers who can be ran on. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. I wanted to highlight both Broncos running backs because we've seen they can coexist, and with Drew Lock, I expect them to run even more. But let's focus on Ronald Jones. Look, I understand the Panthers on paper seem like a tough matchup. It is the Bucs, and it is an angry Bucs team that was just embarrassed last week on national television. I expect the Bucs to come out and be firing on all cylinders this week. And Ronald Jones is now the lead running back for one of the best offenses in football. He's explosive. He's got a lot of burst. I expect him to get the work near the goal line. For me, he's a top 15 running back that I would definitely be starting this week.
You know, Matt Rule and the Panthers had to be sitting at home last week being like, really? Really, Saints? You're just making it harder on us. Like watching Brady not score any points and just knowing what was coming this week for them. All right, let's go over to the wide receivers, though, and show you my list of the must-starts for the week. I got a couple of Dolphins on the list. Devontae Parker, who we mentioned is back and active this week. Russell Gage, who very quietly has been putting together some nice numbers the last few weeks for the Atlanta Falcons. Michael Gallup, I'm getting back on that train. Our producer, Hytham Kalani, says he must be a undercover Grant brother with as much as I stand for him. And then Van Jefferson, who I am a Van Stan, as Andrew Hawkins called me earlier in the week. But let's go back up that list to Jalen Waddle, who has been fantastic all year long. I know early in the year we talked rookie wide receivers. It was the Jamar Chase show. But very steadily, Jalen Waddle is just putting up numbers week after week, and he is gaining the trust of his quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. Really, lately has taken over as the #1 wide receiver there. And the Saints secondary has had some issues. Up front, they are great. They are hard to run on, so I think it's going to be a bad day for any Dolphins running backs. But I think they can throw the football effectively, and I think Jalen Waddle is going to get some good production there this week. All right, so let's round this out with tight ends because, we all need tight end help, right?
Yeah, even more this week than ever. Dawson Knox is the only healthy tight end on the Bills roster this week. I think he is a must-start. Rob Gronkowski, I think it's going to be a lot of him and Antonio Brown. Kyle Pitts against the Lions. Look, Kyle Pitts is better than we give him credit for. He just didn't live up to our massively high expectations. And then Mike Gesicki against the Saints. I like that matchup there for him as well. But let's focus on Dallas Goedert going up against the New York Giants. Not only do the Giants struggle against tight ends, but Dallas Goedert, has been seeing consistent volume as of late. He is their top target in the passing game. We saw last week Hurts was back. Goedert did not miss a step. He just continues to put up good production. So for me, Marcus, I have him ranked inside my top 5 tight ends this week. I wouldn't even be thinking twice about it. I would be starting him with complete confidence.
Absolutely. No, I mean, when they don't throw the ball quite as much as they did early in the year, but when they do, pretty much throw it to Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
I mean, so I completely agree with you on that one. All right. We're going to take a quick break. We will come back and check your little notifications because you may have some DMs popping up. We're going to get to those after the break. But there's Miles Sanders talking about that Eagles offense. They have been run heavy. He has a great opportunity to do some damage. Maybe he gets in the end zone for the first time this year. That would be nice. And there is the aforementioned Tom Brady, probably salty after what happened last week. So hopefully you guys like salt in Carolina because you're going to get a lot of it sprinkled this way on your defense. More Fantasy Game Day coming up after this. Jalen Hurts getting in the groove, getting ready to take on the New York Football Giants.
Remember when people thought he was going to get benched?
Right? For Gardner Minshew? Yeah,
That was a fun joke.
That was a wild week or two. Anyway, he's plugging along. He's still top 5 fantasy quarterback. Meanwhile, Kirk Cousins in what I think could be kind of a score fest potentially against the Rams. I mean, it's a wide receiver showcase between.
It'll be a fun one.
Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson, but Kirk Cousins is going to try to sling the rock against Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, and the rest of that Rams defense. Welcome back to NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. I'm MG, he's MFF. We're getting you ready for Week 16 and the game you need to win to reach your fantasy championship, because the most important part of winning a fantasy championship is getting to a fantasy championship. Don't forget, you can keep sending us your questions on Twitter.com @NFLFantasy, and I believe, I think we have some in now. Let's go and see if we can answer a few. This one for you, Florio. Ronald Jones or CEH to start my second RB spot?
I want to say both, but I have to choose one, so I'll go CEH. I just like the matchup, and I think he's going to get a little bit more volume with the Chiefs so banged up today.
The Steeler run defense has been a huge liability recently. All right, flex position. Duke Johnson, Chuba Hubbard, or Rashad Bateman? Yeah. You know what? I think I'm going to go Rashad Bateman in this one. I think I like the upside. I think the Ravens are going to have to score to keep up with the Bengals in this one. And even though it is Josh Johnson at quarterback, I think he pushes the ball downfield. I think, if you're Josh Johnson, you got nothing to lose. You might as well just YOLO it. Throw it downfield. Get Rashad Bateman involved. All right, this one back for you. Flex spot, DJ Moore or Dallas Goedert. Other receivers are Amari Cooper and T. Higgins.
Yeah, this is an easy one. I want no part of DJ Moore, and I really like Dallas Goedert, so give me Dallas Goedert there. I'm staying far away from all Panthers today.
Just, man, with this whole idea of them using two quarterbacks.
It's so gross.
Cam and Sam.
And those are the two. It's not like, oh, we got Mahomes and Josh Allen.
No.
Yeah.
No. Cam and Sam sounds like a Nickelodeon show from like the 90s. Let's see, next one. Do I start Joe Burrow over Josh Allen this week? Ooh, that's a tough call. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say you stick with Josh Allen just because I think the rushing touchdown upside is a little bit greater. I know both guys can run a little bit, but Josh Allen is definitely the guy they use down closer to the goal line. So I'm going to say stick with Josh Allen this week. It's a tough call. I understand your dilemma there. See, any more? Is that it? That's it. All right. Break out the phones. Time for some fantasy DMs. Who is trying to slide into your starting lineup this week?
This is someone that I tried cutting earlier this year. I was like, listen, I want no part of you. You know, we had a little good run. It's over with now. But now I'm like, hey, Russell Gage, what are you doing, man? You available? Because I need you in my Week 16 lineups. Russell Gage has been so good as of late. He's given you a floor of double-digit fantasy points, and he's top 20 in 2 of his last 3. There's just consistent volume going his way. They're using him more in the red zone. And what I like is he's playing the Detroit Lions. We know the Detroit Lions defense can give up a bunch of production. So for me, I say if you still have Russell Gage on your team, hopefully you do, get him in your starting lineup this week.
Yeah, he's been so good lately. I don't think we're talking enough about how good he has been. For me, my DM this week is to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And again, another guy that we haven't really been super excited about most of the year. He's been pretty mediocre much of the time. But this is a week where I think you can start him. He's got a great matchup. The Steelers have statistically the 31st ranked run defense in the National Football League. So if there's ever an opportunity for CEH to get involved, I think this is one. And especially with no Travis Kelce this week, not that he's going to absorb all of those targets, but he could see a couple extra targets just because Kelce isn't there, maybe even down near the goal line. They like to run those little shovel passes sometimes to Kelce near the end zone. Maybe instead they run those to CEH, and he finds his way into the painted area. So he's a guy that I would definitely try to have in my lineup. So those are a couple of potential fantasy heroes, but you can't have a hero without a villain. So who's the guy that might Thanos you out of the playoffs this week?
He did it to me last week, so if you still have him, I feel bad for you. But it is Saquon Barkley. Look, Saquon is that dude that, he's like sliding in your DMs. You want to leave him on red. You don't want to respond, but you're like, he's Saquon Barkley. How can I leave him on my bench? I got to get him in there. And then he gives you like 11 fantasy points. If he scores a touchdown, maybe he could top 15. He doesn't have 65 rushing yards in the game this year. Jake Fromm is the starting quarterback, so if you're banking on dump-offs, I don't know if that's such a great thing to bank on. Right now, Saquon Barkley is just a name, but he is such a big name that a lot of people still feel they have to start him each week.
Could you imagine a top 5 pick where we're here in week 16 and we're like, yeah, just bench him. And like he's not hurt or anything. You're just, I just don't like your matchup and you're not playing well. Just bench him. If you are a fan of Rick and Morty like Florio and I, you probably are familiar with Scary Terry. So that leads us to Scary Terry McLaurin taking on the Dallas Cowboys this week. Look, if you look, it has not been a great year for McLaurin, not the way we thought. And I don't know if it has to do with it being Taylor Heineke instead of Ryan Fitzpatrick, or if it's just that teams are finding ways to defend him because there are really no other options in the Washington passing game. But you see that fewer than 125 yards in his last 4 games combined. I mean, what he has done in the last month is what Cooper Kupp tends to do in 3/4 of a game. So this is not a great matchup. The last time these two teams played, it was not a good day. He was shut out on 4 targets last time they played the Cowboys. So I would very much beware of Terry McLaurin this week. That seems like a good place to take a breath and catch our breath and get ready for the next segment. There's Cooper Kupp, who has taken a lot of folks' breath away, especially if you're in the opposing secondary, looking to do that to the Minnesota Vikings. A great matchup on paper for Cooper Kupp in this one. And Josh Allen.
Ooh, there he is.
Big game in Foxborough. Weather looks significantly better this time around.
Not a monsoon.
Than it did the last time these two teams played up in Orchard Park. We got some sleepers coming up a little bit later on, so stick around for more NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. Adam Thielen is back after missing the last few games with injury, and the Vikings desperately use him. Certainly Justin Jefferson's great. It's always nice to have help. They're going to need it today against the Rams.
Fantasy managers need it too.
Fantasy managers definitely need it too. I've seen a couple questions about him in the last couple of days. And Josh Johnson is the Ravens quarterback of the week.
Jets legend.
Jets legend, Josh Johnson. He is. So, like, when I was a kid, there was, like, a guy named Vince Evans who would, like, every now and then be pulled out of retirement to come in, like, backup quarterback in, like, week 15 or 16. Now that Vince Evans is too old for that, Josh Johnson seems to.
Not only does he do that for NFL teams, he does it for every other league that ever pops up, too.
Pretty much, like, hey, your flag football team need a quarterback? Call Josh Johnson. He can come help you out. Welcome back to NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. I am Marcus. That is Michael F. Florio. And we got some burning questions for you to start this one off. So, I'm sorry, we have boards. We should go to actives and inactives. My bad, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's start with the morning games where Lamar Jackson is out because we just showed you Josh Johnson, so that should have kind of clued you into that part. DeAndre Swift inactive with that shoulder injury. There was hope he could come back this week. Damian Harris is active for the Patriots against the Bills. DJ Moore is active, but his quarterback situation is a mess. As we've mentioned, Adam Thielen is back. Kadarius Toney is back as well. Meanwhile, in the late games, Teddy Bridgewater out with a concussion. We're waiting until game time to learn about Antonio Gibson's status. Darren Waller looking doubtful for the Raiders against the Broncos this week. And Pat Freiermuth is out with a concussion. Now we got a board of all the guys who are missing games because of COVID. Jared Goff, Tyler Huntley. Again, why Josh Johnson is starting. Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian are opening the door for Ian Book. Austin Eckler gives way to Justin Jackson. Dalvin Cook is out. Alexander Mattison is in. Cole Beasley out for the Bills. And Travis Kelce, a big one, out for the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, now is it time for burning questions? I think now it is time for burning questions. So let's ask some burning questions, and we'll do our best to answer them for you as well. Our first one is, I should look at my notes and tell you, is Cam Newton worth starting today against the Buccaneers? I know what I'm doing here. Is Cam Newton worth starting today against the Buccaneers? I feel like we've sort of answered that, but let's, like, formally answer that one, huh?
No. That's it. No, I mean, they're doing a platoon here with multiple quarterbacks. They're saying Sam Darnold, we're hearing reports, could play a good amount this week. So unless you're like our producer Hytham and you're in a 2-quarterback league where your other options are Drew Lock and Josh Johnson, and even there I'm not confident playing Cam Newton. So no, I think you get far away from Cam and the Panthers as possible.
I'm with you. I want zero parts of this. There's no telling us like how the rotation is going to be, when they're going to come in, what they're going to do. Like this is such a mess. Look, if I were playing against a team in a 2 QB league and they were starting Sam Darnold and Cam Newton, I'd be like, I feel pretty good about my chances.
You're going to get 15 points out of the two of them combined.
I feel really good about my chances. So, yeah, I want no parts of that. All right, next one. Over the last 9 weeks, quarterbacks are averaging 7.3 fantasy points per game against the Patriots. Will Josh Allen smash that trend today? Will it be against New England?
I feel like you guys are trying to set me up for some failure here, but I say yes. I think that Josh Allen showed us last time that he could still throw against the Patriots. The issue was the bad weather. Dawson Knox had some bad drops in that game. Last year in December, he went down to New England, threw for 320 yards, 4 touchdowns, 32 fantasy points. Plus, like you said, Marcus, he can always run. I am still starting Josh Allen everywhere I have him.
I'm starting him too if I've got him somewhere too. I think he's worth it. I think the upside and the ceiling are too high. And I do think Buffalo's going to do something different than what they did the last time around. I mean, they struggled to move the football. Part of it, look, they had wind. There was serious wind issues in Buffalo when they played before. That hopefully won't be the case today, and so I think that makes Josh Allen worth putting in the lineup, despite how good the Patriots have been defensively for a good part of the season at this point. All right, last one. The Broncos have not had any wide receiver score 20 or more fantasy points since October. Is one of their wideouts get 20 or more today against the Raiders?
No. It is Drew Lock, which I don't love. I think they're going to be looking to run the ball a good amount today. Their pass catchers bring such a low floor and very little upside. Maybe that upside is a little bit higher because Drew Lock could air the ball out better than Teddy, but still, it's Drew Lock. 24 touchdowns in 21 career games. I'm good. I'm staying far away from this Broncos offense. I'm only interested in the running backs.
Only interested in the running backs. Yeah, Jerry Jeudy, it's been a disappointing year for him. Cortland Sutton Gordon has been just a straight-up bust, I think, in fantasy this year. Tim Patrick has had some moments, but you're not really starting Tim Patrick on a regular basis. So I would stay away from any of the Broncos pass catchers. Plus, the Raiders secondary has not been awful. If the Raiders have a weakness, it's against the run. So I think that's why we see a lot of Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. Time now for Fantasy Insurance presented by Geico. These are the sleepers, the guys that we want to make sure we have in the lineup. So, Florio, who's somebody that we should not be sleeping on this week?
Craig Reynolds, and I know Craig Reynolds a little less appealing with Jamal Williams back, but still no DeAndre Swift, so I'm expecting those two to kind of share the workload. Maybe he won't get 26 carries like he did last week, but I think 12, 15, something like that is still very much so in play, and against a really good matchup against the Falcons who struggle against running backs. So I'm saying Craig Reynolds, who I think there's a chance too, Marcus, that he might still be playing ahead of Jamal Williams with how effective he has ran the last two games.
Yeah, I mean, he was really good against the Cardinals last week for sure. And there's music. Oh, yes, sleep. Anyway, I don't know if Justin Jackson counts as a sleeper because people have been talking him up all week, but I'm talking him up right here because I think he's worth talking about. I mean, you see this game last week against the Chiefs, right? We were at a point where we were not so excited about starting guys against the Chiefs defense, and somehow Justin Jackson had almost 100 scrimmage yards on 14 touches. You see that there, the 14 for 99 against Kansas City. Now with no Eckler, he moves to the front of the line in terms of opportunities, and the Houston Texans have statistically the worst run defense in the NFL. So I think whether it is on the ground, whether it is through the air, I'm expecting a lot of opportunity and a lot of production from Justin Jackson. It wouldn't be a Sunday, though, without our own Kimmy Checks in the mix. And even though she is getting prepared for her own upcoming nuptial, she did spend some time to send us some of her playoff heroes for Week 16.
What's up, guys? Happy Sunday. I'm still clearly in the Christmas spirit. Got my Kansas City Chiefs ugly sweater, except it's not ugly at all. Christmas lasts forever in my house, as do the fantasy playoffs. Round 2 are here, and if you're lucky enough to be in them, you may need some heroes to come and clutch for you. So I got 3 guys I'm loving this week. Let's start this thing off with the fantasy MVP this season, none other than Cooper Kupp taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Cooper Kupp, he's been insane. We all know that. 3 straight games now with over 120 receiving yards and at least a bare minimum 1 receiving touchdown and at least 26 fantasy points. He's seen double-digit targets from Matthew Stafford, and he's his clear number 1 on this offense. He now gets the Minnesota Vikings, who, a little secret here, they're the absolute worst against fantasy wideouts this season, averaging nearly 42 points allowed to the position. So if Cooper Kupp hasn't come in clutch for you already, he's going to come in clutch against Minnesota. Another one here, it's a running back this time. It's Alvin Kamara going up against the Miami Dolphins. Now, the most breaking news for the New Orleans Saints is that the rookie Ian Book is looking to get his first ever NFL start after quarterback Taysom Hill was placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. Now, you may look at this scenario and be like, oh my gosh, what's happening? No, this doesn't mean good things for Alvin Kamara. Actually, it does, because that now means that Alvin Kamara is basically their only offensive weapon. You can expect all types of dump-offs coming from him. And once he came back from that injury in Week 14, he had 145 total yards and a touchdown. 6 touchdowns in the previous 5 games played for a healthy Alvin Kamara. So him, with the hero from Notre Dame, Ian Book, should be good against Miami. And last but certainly not least, I'm going back around to a pass catcher. It's Jamar Chase hosting the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this is a battle for the AFC North. Both these teams hungry and looking to stay in it. A lot of fantasy managers may be a little bit upset with Jamar Chase's recent games, but that's okay. He's still managed 3 total touchdowns in the last 5 weeks and still has the most targets from Joe Burrow on that Bengals team. More than double-digit targets over guys like T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. So even though those guys have popped the last few weeks, the clear number 1 is still Jamar Chase, and I think he's going to be just fine against the Baltimore Ravens. I hope you guys can get yourself into the championship round of the playoffs with those 3 heroes for round 2. I'm Kimmy Checks. This is fun. Happy Sunday. We've made it through the season, and I'm going to get a dub this week. Let's do it.
Thank you, Kimmy. Hopefully you are well. Look to see you real soon. Antonio Brown, we're going to see him real soon on the field as the Bucs take on the Panthers, trying to bounce back after last week's loss. They need some help at wide receiver. A lot of you probably do as well. Coming up next, got a little bit of fantasy flex. Meanwhile, Stephon Diggs. He's not a flex. He's a wide receiver one.
I could use a big day out of him.
A lot of folks could use a big day out of Stephon Diggs. Patriots don't want one, though. See if they shut him down. Talk more next. Joe Mixon and the Bengals, who are 8-6 and leading the AFC North. Meanwhile, they're playing their rivals, the Ravens, who are 8-6 and currently out of the playoffs because, you know, stuff's weird. Anyways, Rob Gronkowski and the rest of his Bucs teammates getting ready for their game against Carolina. And I gotta say, of all the guys, at least of the guys I was wrong on, I was definitely wrong on how productive Gronk was gonna be this year.
Yeah, I expected, so-so year, but yeah, he's been awesome.
He's been really good. I mean, I know he was hurt for a while, but when he's been healthy, he has been very, very productive for Tampa Bay this season. Back here on NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. I'm Marcus. He is Mike. And we're getting you ready for Week 16. And we know you need to get some wins to get into the fantasy playoffs. Of course, as always, you can keep sending us your questions on Twitter at NFL Fantasy. So we got some lineup decisions. We got some tough lineup decisions, and we know that you're trying to make your flex options valuable and productive. So for people who have flex issues, who should you recommend for them?
I'm going with Damian Harris here. I know he was banged up last week, didn't play, but he is back in our fantasy lives. That hamstring injury seems to be behind him. There's no Ramondre Stevenson this week either, which I think makes Harris get a lot of volume because those two were splitting. They would just split drives, and then, whichever one would be the one lucky enough to get on the field when they were near the goal line. That's all going to be Harris today. I expect to see a lot of Harris on early downs and then Brandon Bolden mixed in. He had a big game against the Bills just a couple of weeks ago, so I think he is definitely in play and a very strong flex option this week.
I think this game, if you're Bill Belichick, what you want to do is you want to keep the score down. I don't think they can get into a track meet with the Bills and win this thing. They want to play defense. Their run defense has been very good. The Bills' run defense has had issues, so I do think this is going to be a Damian Harris game. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets a ton of carries, ton of touches in general in this one. So for me, mine felt a lot better a few days ago than it does now. But I'm still with Amon-Ra St. Brown. The sun god has been shining down on the Detroit Lions offense. He has been the guy who has been the target monster for the last few weeks. And this was a thing I thought would happen earlier in the year. I sort of talked that, maybe Amon-Ra could be Detroit's answer to Cooper Kupp. Now, obviously, he's not going to be Cooper Kupp. I'm not saying that. But in terms of being a safety blanket in the offense, it has certainly started to happen. It just took 4 months for it to happen. I would like it better if it were Jared Goff and not Tim Boyle quarterbacking, but I still think he's going to be the guy that sees most of the opportunity in this passing game. And a decent matchup against the Atlanta Falcons this week.
Yeah, I don't a little bit less with Goff, but I still have him as a wide receiver 3 or a high-end flex option. So I'm with you. I think he's still in play.
All right, so there you go. All right, that gets us now to Who Scores, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. First up for you, Cooper Kupp, Triple Crown man right now himself. He's going for his 10th 100-plus receiving yard game of the year against the Minnesota Vikings. Does it happen?
Yes. Yeah, like, he is Cooper Kupp. He's going to get double-digit targets, and it is against the team that gives up the most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. So the best wide receiver walking the planet in the best possible matchup, yeah, I think he gets 100 yards today.
All right, so DraftKings is projecting Kupp to have right around 107.5 receiving yards. What is your fantasy projection for Cooper?
Conservatively, I'm saying 31 fantasy points.
Yep.
Because last week I had a 33-point fantasy lead, thought I was good, and then Kimmy Checks with just Cooper Kupp came back and broke my heart. So I have Cooper Kupp in a few spots. I need him to make up for the down day that Jonathan Taylor had. But again, it is Cooper Kupp, good volume, great matchup, and what we think could be a score fest. So you got to love Cooper Kupp today.
No, I'm sort of with you on that 30-point thing. I said earlier in the week that I think he's going to make it 3 straight games with 30-plus fantasy points this week. I mean, the matchup's as good as you can get.
Can we give him some MVP love? Because he should 100% get some MVP love.
He should get like some, I mean, he's going to get fantasy MVP love, but he needs real, actual NFL MVP love. He has been that good. I know it's a quarterback award.
If the Browns beat the Packers yesterday, there might have been a stronger case.
Yeah, you're probably right. But Aaron Rodgers still sitting. Tom Brady's still there. It's going to be a quarterback award. And like,
probably.
They will, you know, the consolation will be that they'll get Cooper Kupp like Offensive Player of the Year or something like that.
Then what does Jonathan Taylor get? You know, like those two should be in the MVP discussion.
Man, it's rough out here in these streets. All right, next up, Cordero Patterson has been the Falcons' MVP all season long. Will the Swiss Army knife have 100-plus scrimmage yards today?
I think so. It's a great matchup against the Lions, who really struggle against running backs. What I want to see more of, Marcus, is them using him how they were early on, where they would line him up out wide and stuff, get him more involved in the passing game. That's kind of dwindled a little bit as of late, but he is still their best runner. He is still their best offensive playmaker, and it's just such a good matchup.
It is a great matchup. The Lions have struggled against the run all year long. And, you know, whenever things break down in the running game, they can still line Patterson up out wide and throw him the football on occasion. We've seen that more than once this year. So I think him getting 100 scrimmage yards, I do feel like that's pretty certain for me. So, look, at this point, you're not asking questions. You're just starting Cordero Patterson. That's just what it is. DraftKings is projecting Patterson to have right around 84.5 scrimmage yards. So what's your fantasy projection?
I'm going to give it a kind of a high number here. I'm saying 21 fantasy points. I believe in the talent of Patterson. I believe in the matchup against the Lions. And look, COVID is trying to ruin our Week 16 fantasy fun. We need to still have fun this week, and Cordero Patterson giving you over 20 fantasy points, that'll be a great time.
That's fun. It's a lot of fun. We definitely like that. Like I said, you're starting him. You're not asking any questions. It's just about where the ceiling is. So far this season, the ceiling's been pretty high.
The ceiling is the roof.
The ceiling is the roof. A wise man once said that. That was Who Scores, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code WHOSCORES to claim your deposit bonus up to $1,000. Must be 21 or over. New Jersey, Indiana, and Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Well, it is the day after Christmas, and for a lot of folks, that means you are taking stock of what you receive, figure out what you want to keep, and maybe what you want to return. We've all been there. So it's given us time to think about some fantasy players that maybe we hope we kept the gift receipt for. Floria, who are you returning?
I would be returning Ezekiel Elliott, because I did not want to draft this guy, but then the echo chamber that is fantasy Twitter all summer long convinced me that he is a top 5 running back in one of the best offenses in football, and he's been anything but. He's the RB14 in points per game. I know he's top 10 in total points. That's just because of a volume type of thing. Look, I'm sitting here like, I'll exchange Ezekiel Elliott. Can I please have Jonathan Taylor or Austin Eckler? I'll even take Cordero Patterson, all of these running backs that were going later than Ezekiel Elliott in drafts. And look, for a second straight year, I'm saying this, and I know people are going to get sucked back in on volume, Marcus. I'm not doing it. And because it's a day that you return a lot of stuff. Is that what Box Day is? Because I've never actually known what Box Day is.
So Boxing Day originally, I mean, because of the world we live in, was virtually like a day which you were supposed to give gifts to people who were less fortunate or whatever. Now it's just a shopping day.
I always thought it was like, because you return everything you did. That's
yeah,
what
that makes sense. Actually, it kind of makes sense too. As a little kid, I actually thought you actually laced up some gloves and you stepped in the ring, and I'm like, this seems like unpleasant all the way around.
The day after Christmas,
right? Like, hey man, let's just fight it out now. By the way, the thing on Zeke, I feel like the Cowboys sort of told us. Maybe we didn't listen, but they're like, we want to use Tony Pollard more. We want to limit Zeke's opportunities. We were all like, bah, it's Zeke, it's fine. Maybe sometimes we should listen when teams try to tell us things. For me, Allen Robinson, it's over, man. Like we gotta part ways, at least for this year. I really hope that this was going to be a year that Allen Robinson prospered. They drafted Justin Fields. It seemed like everything was in line for that to work out, and it just hasn't. I mean, you see that 79th among wide receivers in points per game. I know he spent some time injured, but it has been just miserable for him this year. And, we have probably seen the last of him in a Bears uniform. I mean, he's pretty much made it clear that he doesn't want to be there anymore. I think he likes the city of Chicago, which is weird to me. Like, who doesn't like Chicago? It's a great city. They got food. They got lakes. It's wonderful. They have Game of Thrones winter. That's not great.
Yeah, I'm good on that.
You went to Penn State. What do you care? Anyway, Matt Stafford. We talked about Cooper Kupp, but this is the guy who's been slinging him the rock, and Stafford very much having a good year for the Rams.
3 TDs to Cooper Kupp, please.
I'm sure a lot of folks would love that, unless you're playing against Cooper Kupp, in which case you don't want any part of that. And it's the Bengals, Joe Burrow and company, getting loose for their game against the Ravens. Big divisional matchup. And is that CJ Uzomah outside of his buddy
downward dog?
There's a little downward dog, huh? A little stretchy there. All right, we got some last minute advice for you coming up after the break. are the Philadelphia Eagles getting ready for their game. Devontae Smith, who has been sort of up and down this year. Doesn't help him that the Eagles are the run-heaviest team in the NFL, but still potential for him to get some targets against Big Blue.
Look at that brace.
I know, right? It's like a robotic arm over there. Hope he's okay. And then Justin Jefferson, who is just a beast. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter what the matchup is. It was fun. So apparently he was wearing an OBJ t-shirt before the game, and OBJ is wearing a Justin Jefferson t-shirt. So.
I know Jefferson used to stand for Odell. It should 100% be the other way now.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, this is sort of like, you know, Superman wears Chuck Norris underwear or something like that. Anyway, here are our actives and inactives for the early games. Lamar Jackson is out. DeAndre Swift is inactive. Damian Harris, N'Keal Harry are active. DJ Moore active after the hamstring. Adam Thielen is active. Kadarius Toney active after an oblique issue and a COVID issue. And that's 15 minutes to kickoff, presented by Geico. I'm Marcus. He's Michael. We are taking you right up to kickoff for Week 16. Got plenty to talk about. You can keep sending us your questions on Twitter at NFL Fantasy. In fact, we're going to answer some of those right now. This one for you, Higgins or Cooper? I'm guessing that's Amari Cooper.
Ooh, I like the matchup for Amari Cooper, but the last time the Cowboys played them, they disappointed. So I'm going to go with T. Higgins here against a really depleted Baltimore secondary.
Yeah, losing Marlon Humphrey is a big deal for them. They've got a lot of injuries there. And T. Higgins, in the back half of the season, has really come to life. So I think I like T. Higgins in that one as well. Next one, Josh Jacobs or Stephon Diggs? Ooh, this is a tough call. You know what? I still think I'm going to go Josh Jacobs. That's a tough call for me just because I think the Patriots are going to try to take Diggs out of action, especially with no Cole Beasley or Gabe Davis. I think they focus on Stephon Diggs. Josh Jacobs, the other part, he's catching the football this year.
That's the best part about him right now.
The best part, he's catching the football now. So there's reason to get excited about what that one is. See, we got any more? Yep, here we go. Tyler Boyd or Dawson Knox for the flex. And Dawson Knox, by the way, the only tight end active on the roster for the Bills today.
I was trying to think of like a rhyme for it, but Knox in the flex doesn't work. But give me Knox there because Tyler Boyd had a big game last week, but that was his first big game in a while. I think a lot of volume's going to go Dawson Knox's way.
Yeah, I feel like Tyler Boyd, it was like one big play, and that was
yeah.
We haven't seen much from him beyond that. Let's see, one more? We got one more. All right. Beckham, Waddle, or Pollard as flex standard, and you already have Zeke. Well, if that's the case, if you've already got Zeke, I don't know if I want to put all my eggs in the Dallas Cowboy backfield basket. So I may lean toward Jalen Waddle in this one. It means you do have to wait until Monday night and cross your fingers that nothing happens between now and Monday night. But I don't know if I want to completely load up on the Cowboys backfield. That seems a little bit scary for me. All right. It is Sunday Fun Time. Sunday Fun Day. I blew the whole. I got all excited. I blew the whole bit. Sunday Fun Day time. We're going to go through and talk about some of these superlatives for today. So today's top scorer will be?
James Robinson. Because James Robinson's getting more volume. This is a little spicy, I know, but he's been getting more volume as of late. Last week we saw it. It was a close competitive game. That's exactly what I expect this week, which I think means he could get 18, 20 touches, something like that. The Jets give up the most fantasy points, the most yards. They're in the top 3 in touchdowns and catches as well allowed to running backs. So I just think it means a good day for back in our lives workhorse running back James Robinson.
You know, here's the thing. Urban Meyer definitely was not the solution in Jacksonville, but he also wasn't the totality of the problem. But certainly now that he is out of the way, James Robinson is back. And that was kind of all we wanted. I was hoping that maybe it would mean good things for Laviska Shenault too, but I guess I just got to blow out that candle because that's just not going to happen to me. For me, though, the top scorer of the week, I say it's going to be Javonte Williams. And I know he's still splitting opportunities with Melvin Gordon back there, but with Drew Lockett quarterback, with a wide receiver core that is underperforming, and the Raiders have been pretty tough on passing games. So I think this is a heavy game for the running backs. I like Javonte Williams. I think he eats today. He's going to catch the football. He's going to run the football. He may have an angry run or two, kind of like that. So I like him as maybe being a little bit of a surprise as the top scorer for Sunday. Let's go. Must start quarterback. Who is that for you?
Joe Burrow, and Kimmy would be very happy right now. We know Kimmy loves Joe Burrow and his swag, but we talked about it earlier, Marcus, that no Marlon Humphreys, a bunch of other key pieces missing in that Ravens secondary. So in a game that is very important, the whole division is separated by like a game right now. This is for first place, so I think Joe Burrow's going to throw a good amount. I think T. Higgins could have a good day, Jamar Chase, and if those two are having a good day, we even spoke up C.J. Uzomah as a sleeper. It means the person throwing them the ball, Joe Burrow is also having a good fantasy day. So I would definitely be looking to start Joe Burrow today.
I mean, it's wild. The Bengals are 8-6. They lead the division. The Ravens are 8-6, and currently they're not in a playoff spot. So, this is just how NFL math works sometimes. For me, I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford, and we have spent a lot of time today talking about Cooper Kupp, understandably so, because he has been great. But let's keep in mind that Matthew Stafford has a pretty good matchup as well against the Vikings. And after a little bit of a mini slump for a couple of weeks, it looks like Stafford has kind of gotten things back together again and is playing good football once again. The Rams are getting healthy and getting hot at the right time. This seems like a big opportunity for them, especially now. Look, after the Cardinals lost last night, from just a pure football standpoint, this is a big opportunity for the Rams to really kind of take control of the NFC West. They are right now sitting in first place by themselves, but a chance to maybe kind of try to put a little bit of space between them and the Cardinals. And I think Matthew Stafford's going to have a lot to do with it against the Vikings today.
Plus, the Vikings have, picked on Matthew Stafford and the Lions for so many years. Now he's coming back with his new friends. He's he wants to show off a little bit. You know that.
Exactly. This is going to be sort of like the Rumble in Anchorman a little bit. No touching of the hair or face. Other than that, there are no rules. Must start running back this week.
I just watched that 2 days ago, too. My must start running back is David Montgomery. Look, I know the Bears are a little bit shorthanded right now. We got Nick Foles throwing him the ball. That's what I want because Justin Fields is going to tuck and run. Nick Foles is going to be looking to dump it off. David Montgomery the Bears have made an emphasis to get him included in the passing game. In his last 3 games, he has at least 6 targets and at least 5 catches in all 3 of them. And Seattle allows the most catches and receiving yards per game to running backs. So I think David Montgomery, I like his chances of scoring a touchdown, but I think even if the Bears fall behind, he could get a lot of dump offs and a lot of yards that way.
Yeah, I think this is a week they have to lean on him with their quarterback situation being what it is. No Justin Fields this week. So I do think a lot of David Montgomery is very much in the cards for this Bears offense. I'm going to go with Najee Harris, who last week was a huge disappointment. I thought he was a beware last week. I didn't think he was just going to flat out leave you in the lurch. But this is a week I think he bounces back. So if you survived with Najee Harris or if you're playing a daily lineup, I like his opportunity against the Chiefs. Yes, their defense has improved, but they're still giving up yards on the ground. They're still giving up catches to running backs. And hopefully this is a week where for Harris, the catches actually turn into yards. He's getting a lot of targets. He's getting a lot of catches. He's just not putting up yards. But hopefully this is a week that changes. I think the Steelers are going to need him in this one because, again, they want to keep this score down, too. They don't want to get into a score fest with the Chiefs because I think that's going to be potentially bad news for them. Over to wide receiver, looking at some must-starts there. Who you got?
Do you have room on the Van Jefferson hype
Come on
train?
aboard!
I'm saying Van Jefferson is a must-start wide receiver this week. Look, we keep talking up that we love Matthew Stafford. We all love Cooper Kupp. We know how great he is. But the Vikings are such a good matchup for receivers. They allow the most fantasy points per game to the position. Last week against Seattle was a game where it was a better matchup for the running backs to run the ball. This week is the exact opposite. So I think that Van Jefferson, we know they're going to take a couple deep shots with him. We know they like using him in the red zone as well. I think he scores a touchdown today. I have Van Jefferson as a wide receiver too, but I think he's got a little bit more upside than that as well.
Always down to have more Van stands hanging out with me. Again, with Stafford, I think throwing the ball a lot, throwing it all over the yard. I think all of the Rams receivers can have pretty good days. We know Kupp's going to do his thing, but I think Jefferson can eat. I think OBJ will have a couple of nice plays as well. So get any of those guys into your lineup. For me, my must-start wide receiver is Tyler Lockett, and I know he's been out a little bit with some injuries, but when he was on the field, the last few times we saw him, he seemed to be Russell Wilson's wide receiver of choice, and I think it goes back to that today against the Bears, who can give up some big plays in the passing game, but I just think more than anything, it's the volume of targets for Tyler Lockett that make him a must-start. And so this is not so much me telling you that Tyler Lockett is good as a reminder, though, that he is good and he is available and he should be in your lineup this week. Hopefully this means good things for Russ, too. I do like Russ as a start. And hopefully all of his guys, whether it's Lockett, whether it's DK Metcalf, and even maybe a little bit of Gerald Everett, hopefully they get some opportunities to perform well today. That gets us to tight ends, where everybody pretty much needs some help. So if you had to pick a must-start tight end, who would it be?
This might seem a little bold to some of you, but it's Kyle Pitts. Look.
Yep.
Kyle Pitts has been better than we give him credit for. He already has more receiving yards than any rookie tight end in the last decade. The only issue is he has 1 touchdown on the year, but he's a Pro Bowler. He has a chance to be a 1,000-yard tight end this year. He has a chance to be the best fantasy rookie tight end in the last decade. I think the Falcons, who are a team that are still somewhat hanging around in the playoff race, are going to look to just, kind of try to lay a smackdown on these Detroit Lions today. So I think Kyle Pitts could have a good game. And you see there, he's been pretty good as of late. Top 8 tight end in 4 straight games. He just hasn't lived up to the massive, massive expectations that we put on him.
Which kind of was my fear coming into the season, that people were talking about him as a top 5, maybe even top 3 tight end. That felt a little spicy. I felt like he was a top 8 guy, and that's kind of where he has landed. And you're right, it hasn't been spectacular, right? He had a couple of 100-yard games. Beyond that, it's been kind of and then the 1 touchdown is sort of disappointing. But I'm with you on this one. I think this is a big Kyle Pitts week for the Atlanta Falcons. My must-start tight end, and you heard Florio talk about it earlier, it's Dallas Goedert, because, like I said, the Eagles are the most run-heavy team in the National Football League, but when they throw the football, they are throwing it primarily to Dallas Goedert. He's had a 26% target share over the last month or so, and so that means that when they put it up, that is where they are looking. He's got a very good matchup this week. It even doesn't matter, just because he's getting so much volume in this offense, and I think he's worth having a start for. The other target's kind of going to Devontae Smith. I don't feel quite as confident there, but Goedert for sure needs to be in fantasy lineups, unless you somehow have George Kittle, I guess. But, he already played, so what are you going to do? So, yeah, Dallas Goedert is there. All right. That gets us to our fantasy bold predictions for the week. Things that we think are going to happen that might sound a little bit insane, but we believe them in here. So what's your bold prediction?
I think Antonio Brown is going to get at least 25 fantasy points today. Why? Because his quarterback, Tom Brady, is the best PR rep in the world. And you might have heard that there's been some negative stories around Antonio Brown.
What?
But we're an easy society to win back over, right? Like, if he has a good game today, everyone will love Antonio Brown again. I think that's what's going to happen against the Panthers. I think, like we said earlier, Marcus, an angry Tom Brady and the Bucs are going to come out. I think they're going to take some shots downfield with Antonio Brown. We know that he's one of his favorite weapons in the end zone, so wouldn't surprise me if he has 100 yards, a touchdown, something like that. I think a big day is coming for AB.
I completely agree with you with that. Just they got to feed somebody targets, and Antonio Brown. Look, for all the other things surrounding Antonio Brown, he's still really good at football. So I think he's going to get plenty of targets in this one, and I would start him if I have him. For me, my bold prediction is that Trevor Lawrence, for the first time since week 1, will have multiple passing touchdowns in a game. It's been a rough year for T-Law. He has 9 touchdowns all year long. 3 of them came in the first week of the season. But this week, he gets the Jetropolitans, which, that is the cure for what ails you more often than not. So I think we're going to see Trevor Lawrence go out and have one of his better games of the year. I think he's going to get multiple passing touchdowns. And, I know you're not starting him unless you're really, really hurting or in a super deep 2 QB league. But, it's a good start.
I hope he drops a bing bong when he does it.
That'd be great. Bing bong. There you go. That'll do it for us. The Vikings taking the field. The Eagles taking the field. We're going to be heading on out. Best of luck to you in Week 16. Hopefully we're talking about some wins and you heading on to championship week. We'll see you next week, everybody.